In the final days before the U.S. presidential election, both candidates are circling back to those swing states that are likely to decide the race for the White House. The death toll continues to rise from an Israeli airstrike on a building in northern Gaza. More than 24 children are among those killed. And Spain sees its deadliest flooding in 3 decades. At least 95 people have been killed and others are missing.
North Korea test fires a suspected intercontinental ballistic missile, thought to be one of the most powerful in its armoury. Washington condemns the move.
Stories making headlines. The first case of a new strain of Mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, has been detected in the UK. The patient, who had recently been on holiday in Africa, developed flu-like symptoms and a rash after flying home. The new outbreak appears to spread more easily between people, but authorities say the risk to the public remains low. Train fares in England are set to rise by 4.6% next year. The measures, which were announced in the budget, will also see the cost of rail cards go up by £5. The changes come into force in March 2025. Campaigners said the fare rises were a kick in the teeth for people who rely on public transport. And the England cricket captain, Ben Stokes, says a masked gang of burglars broke into his home earlier this month while his wife and 2 children were there. Stokes, who was away playing in Pakistan, says his family didn't come to any physical harm. In a post on social media, he says cherished possessions have been taken, including his valued OBE medal.
Our headlines today. Households and businesses assess the impact of the first Labour budget in 14 years.
The Chancellor will spend the day explaining her decision to announce £40 billion of tax rises and major spending increases for health and education.
Was it a budget for growth, as the Chancellor says, or a gamble, as some economists have claimed? Good morning from the Leeds Corn Exchange, a venue rich in economic and trading history, where I'll be getting reaction from people and businesses here to what the Chancellor announced.
3 days of national mourning begin in Spain after flash floods kill at least 95 people. Authorities say many more are still missing.
Refusing to run scared, a campaign's launched to help women feel safe to exercise outside in the dark. We're going to have a look at the papers at 6:23 this morning. And yes, the budget dominates. Let's start with the Daily Telegraph, calling it Nightmare on Downing Street. You can see it there, saying tax rises have crushed hopes of higher growth and will damage living standards.
The Eye describes it as a great £40 billion tax gamble. The paper says the Chancellor hopes to encourage growth by boosting investment, but that the changes are set to cost households £300 a year. The Guardian says the budget is a return to tax and spend, and whilst it included an emergency NHS cash injection, Rachel Reeves has, and I quote, gambled on voters, rewarding the government for patching up Britain's crumbling services.
And finally, The Sun picks up on the government's decision to freeze fuel duty. It depicts the Chancellor as a pumpkin. Yes, you get the idea. It's a Halloween-themed headline reads, at least she kept it down at the pumpkins. There we go.
Well delivered.
Thank you. Just a thought for you. Tuesday, of course, and next week is US election night.
5 days to
in
go.
the Times, in the diary column, David Black has been in touch with them to say on that night he is going to be going to see Bob Dylan playing in Edinburgh. That's quite a way to spend election night, isn't it? Bob Dylan is 2 years older than Joe Biden, and his tour itinerary is he's doing 21 gigs in 32 days in 7 countries, which is quite a workload. I know that's been one of the talking points about how hard it is when you're a president. That's not easy.
Not bad at all. I bet it'd be a great show too.
It will be.
Good morning from BBC London. I'm Victoria Hollins. A 17-year-old boy has been found guilty of the murder of a woman killed at the front door of her own home. Leanne Gordon was shot dead through her door in Hackney last year as she tried to protect her children from gang violence. The Old Bailey heard the 42-year-old mother had been the unintended victim of a feud between rival local gangs. The disabled woman says she's been unable to move into the specially adapted flat she was given 3 years ago because it's unsafe and dogged with problems. Deborah Morgan says that after she moved her furniture and belongings into her new Woolwich flat, she discovered it was infested with worms, had faulty electrics and a broken window. Despite asking the Housing Association to fix the problems, she says many are still outstanding.
I've had a pleurisy that turned into a really, really bad chest infection that became vertigo. I've had insomnia for months. You know, I've got health conditions, so the impact has been huge. And at some stages, to be honest, I felt suicidal.
Well, in a statement, the Housing Association L&Q say that they apologise for the delays in getting the works complete and they're keen to progress them. They say they're working closely with the local authority to make sure that Ms Morgan receives the support she needs. People are being encouraged to come into the city today. £1 million in one day to support the armed forces community. Charity ambassador and actor Ross Kemp will be lending support alongside military bands, service personnel and approximately 2,500 Poppy Appeal collectors. This year the appeal is highlighting the mental scars that can be left after military service.
At 6, the death toll soars in Spain. At least 158 people are now known to have died in the flash floods in the country's worst flooding disaster in a generation. A tangle of cars and boats caught up in the torrent of water that swept through parts of Valencia. The military is helping search for the missing, with bodies still being found in cars. These satellite images of Valencia before and after the floods show just how much water swamped the land in a few hours. We'll be looking at how much climate change was to blame. Also tonight, after the Chancellor's budget, we look at how workers will be impacted and how the markets have reacted. The Russian drones shooting at Ukrainian civilians from the skies. We report on the new tactic. And the multi-million-pound repairs to restore the bridge made famous by Harry Potter.
More on the budget as we ask, has London lost out?
We've had 14 years of structural underfunding in local government and across public services. We've got rising need, a complexity of need and skyrocketing costs.
So one day on, what can we conclude about the budget? Also tonight, after air pollution contributed to the death of her daughter, the mother who settled legal action against the government out of court says it's no victory.
You stop him! You get tasered! Get your hands up!
A man tasered by officers in central London gets compensation of thousands. City of London Police says it's disappointed. And from spooky street parties to the light and colour of Diwali, we're out and about on a night celebrating two extremes.
A prolific shoplifter has been told she can no longer wear wigs. Hannah Roberts was using hairpieces to disguise herself to gain entry to shops she had been banned from in Gloucester city centre. The large and distinctive tattoo on her neck helped the authorities to recognise her.